When my mother said, "Don't expect a penny from us," I smiled. On her birthday, she opened a gift, foreclosure papers for her favorite vacation home. She turned pale. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I already did," I said. "That's the property you signed over when you borrowed from me." She thought it was a birthday gift. I handed her the box with a smile, knowing exactly what was inside. She expected diamonds. What she found were foreclosure papers. Her sanctuary, gone. And I was the one who took it. The room was warm, filled with the scent of rosemary chicken and the soft hum of jazz playing from the corner speaker. My mother sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, her blue silk scarf draped elegantly over her shoulder. She looked radiant, untouched by time, sipping her wine like royalty. I had planned every detail of the evening. Her favorite meal, her favorite music, even the gold wrapping paper she always associated with luxury. It was all deliberate. Every choice was a thread in the web I'd been weaving for years. She reached for the box with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You always know how to spoil me," she said, her voice smooth and rehearsed. I nodded, watching her fingers slide under the ribbon. She opened the lid, expecting sparkle. Instead, she found silence. Her eyes scanned the top page. Her smile faltered. Her fingers trembled. "What is this?" she asked, her voice suddenly small. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to sit with it. To feel the weight of the paper in her hand. To read the words slowly, deliberately. "Foreclosure," she whispered, as if saying it aloud would make it less real. "You wouldn't," she said, looking up at me with disbelief. "I already did," I replied. She stared at me, searching for the daughter she thought she knew. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I hadn't been for a long time. "It started the day," she said, "don't expect a penny from us." I was 23, fresh out of college, drowning in student loans and rejection emails. I had come home hoping for a little support, a temporary lifeline. I didn't ask for much. Just enough to keep the lights on while I found my footing. She sat across from me in her pristine kitchen, the marble counters gleaming, the scent of imported coffee lingering in the air. She didn't look at me when she said it. She just stirred her tea and let the words fall like crumbs. "Don't expect a penny from us." No explanation. No discussion. Just a verdict. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just stood up and left. That sentence carved itself into my bones. It became my fuel. Every job I took, every dollar I saved, every sleepless night, I did it with those words echoing in my head. I built my life brick by brick. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I lived in a studio apartment with peeling paint and a broken heater. I ate instant noodles and wore thrift store clothes. But I never asked for help again. I learned to survive without her. Years passed. I became someone else. Someone stronger, sharper. And then one afternoon she called. She needed money. She didn't say it outright. She danced around it, mentioning a temporary setback and unexpected expenses. We met at a cafe near her yoga studio. She wore oversized sunglasses and a designer coat. She looked tired but still polished. "I need a favor," she said, stirring her coffee. I waited. "I need a loan," she said finally. "Just for a few months." I nodded. "How much?" She told me. It was a large sum. But I had it. I had earned it. "I'll write it down," I said. "Just something simple." She waved her hand. "I trust you." She signed without reading. That trust was the only thing she ever gave me freely. And even that felt borrowed. I kept the paper in a fireproof box under my bed. I didn't look at it often. But I knew it was there. Like a quiet promise. Like a loaded gun. Her lake house was her pride. She called it her sanctuary. She posted pictures of it online. Sunsets over the water, wine glasses on the deck, her laughing with friends. I was rarely invited. Once I drove up unannounced. She looked surprised, almost annoyed. "I didn't know you were coming," she said. "I just wanted to see the house," I replied. He gave me a tour, quick and impersonal. I sat on the porch while she entertained guests inside. I watched the lake ripple under the moonlight and wondered what it felt like to be welcome. That house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol. Of everything she valued. Everything she chose over me. So when she defaulted on the loan, I didn't hesitate. I filed the papers. I followed the process. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just did what needed to be done. And then I waited for her birthday. I planned the dinner carefully. Her favorite wine. Her favorite music. Her favorite meal. I wanted everything to feel familiar. I wanted her to feel safe. Because the moment she opened that box, I wanted the contrast to be sharp. She didn't speak for a long time after I said, "I already did." She just stared at the papers, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she looked up and said, "You planned this?" "Yes." "You wanted to hurt me?" "No," I said. "I wanted you to see what you signed." He pushed the box away. "You're cruel." I stood up. I learned from the best. She didn't follow me when I left. She didn't call the next day. But I knew she understood. That debt wasn't just money. It was years of silence. Years of rejection. Years of being told I didn't matter. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. I wanted her to see me, not as a child, not as a burden, but as someone who had power. Someone who had value. That night I walked home alone. The streets were quiet. The air was crisp. I felt something shift inside me. Not joy. Not triumph. Just clarity. She had taught me not to expect anything. And I had learned to give nothing in return. The debt was paid. The house was gone. And for the first time in my life I felt free. I walked home that night with the sound of her silence still ringing in my ears. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the pavement. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. That moment at the dinner table, her stunned face, the papers trembling in her hands, wasn't the beginning. It was the echo of 1,000 smaller moments, each one carving a little deeper into me. And most of them started long before I ever knew what a foreclosure notice looked like. I was 7 the first time I realized birthdays weren't for everyone. My cousins had balloons, cakes layered with frosting, and rooms filled with laughter. I had a store-bought cupcake, and a distracted, "Happy birthday," muttered as she rushed out the door. He was always rushing, always somewhere else. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the single candle, waiting for her to come back and sing. He didn't. That day I learned not to expect much. It wasn't just the birthday. It was the way she made me feel like a footnote in her life. My younger brother got piano lessons, tennis lessons, and a shiny new bike with streamers on the handlebars. I got hand-me-downs in silence. I asked once why I couldn't learn piano too. She didn't even look up from her magazine. "You're not musical," she said. That was it. No discussion. No encouragement. Just a label slapped on like a price tag. I believed her. For years I believed her. I watched my brother play scales and sonatas while I sat in the hallway listening through the door. Eventually I found a second-hand keyboard at a garage sale. I taught myself late at night, pressing keys softly so no one would hear. I learned to play by ear, mimicking the songs I heard on the radio. She never noticed. Not once. Then there was the day she forgot to pick me up from school. It was raining, one of those cold, steady drizzles that soaks through your socks and makes everything feel heavier. I waited outside for 2 hours, clutching my backpack, watching the other kids leave one by one. The janitor finally came out and asked if I was okay. He called her. She arrived with lipstick smudged and perfume strong, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. "I lost track of time," she said, brushing her hair back like it was nothing. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just stopped waiting for her after that. Some things you learn to bury. Like the time I saw her holding hands with a man who wasn't my father. I was 10. We were at the mall and I had wandered off to look at the toy section. I turned a corner and saw her standing by the fountain, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. His hand was on her waist. Hers was on his. They looked happy. Happier than I'd ever seen her at home. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even write it in my journal. I buried it deep like everything else. That secret became a seed, one that grew into quiet resentment. He never knew I saw. But I never forgot. It wasn't just the big things. It was the accumulation of small dismissals. The way she'd forget my school projects but remember my sister's dance recitals. The way she'd praise my brother's drawings and ignore mine. The way she'd talk about her children in public and leave me out of the count. At a family reunion, someone asked her how many children she had. She smiled and said, 2, naming my brother and sister. I stood right there. She laughed it off later, said she was distracted. But I knew then, I was never really part of her story. I started fading myself out. I stopped asking for things. I stopped trying to impress her. I became quiet, observant. I learned to read people, to anticipate moods, to disappear when necessary. I became the shadow in the corner, the one who didn't make waves. But inside, the storm was building. One summer I got a part in the school play. It wasn't a lead role, but it mattered to me. I rehearsed every night, memorized my lines, practiced my expressions in the mirror. I invited her to the performance. She said she'd come. He didn't. I scanned the audience from the stage, hoping to see her face. She wasn't there. After the show, I walked home alone, still wearing my costume. She was on the phone when I got back, laughing with someone. "Oh, I completely forgot," she said when I reminded her. "Was it good?" I nodded. "It was fine." She never asked again. There was a time I tried to write her a letter. I was 13 and I had just read a book about daughters and mothers reconnecting. I poured my heart into that letter. Every hurt, every hope, every wish for something better. I folded it carefully and placed it on her nightstand. She never mentioned it. Weeks later, I found it under a pile of magazines, unopened. I stopped writing after that. Sometimes I wondered if she even saw me. Not just physically but emotionally. Did she notice when I stopped eating dinner with the family? Did she care when I spent hours alone in my room? Did she hear me crying through the walls? He did, she never said. One winter I got sick. A bad flu. I stayed home from school for a week, feverish and weak. She brought me medicine, but her eyes were always on her phone. She'd place the tray on my nightstand and leave without a word. My sister came in once, sat with me for a while, read to me from a magazine. That moment felt warmer than anything my mother had done. I clung to it. I learned to find comfort in small things. A kind teacher, a quiet friend, a good book. I built my own sanctuary inside my head, a place where I mattered. Where I was seen. But the storm kept growing. By the time I was 16, I had stopped trying altogether. I didn't invite her to my art show. I didn't tell her about my scholarship. I didn't ask for her opinion on anything. I became self-sufficient, emotionally detached. She noticed the distance eventually. "You've changed," she said once, frowning. I shrugged. People grow up. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what she'd missed. And I didn't offer. That childhood wasn't just lonely. It was formative. It taught me how to survive without love. How to build walls. How to protect myself from disappointment. Built the storm. And one day that storm would come knocking. The drive back from the lake house was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call anyone. I just let the hum of the tires on the road fill the silence. The house was gone now, at least it would be soon. I had locked the door behind me, not just physically but emotionally. That place had held too many ghosts and I wasn't going to carry them anymore. When I got home, I sat at my desk and pulled out a blank sheet of paper. I didn't plan to write anything. I just stared at it for a while, letting the weight of everything settle. Then slowly the words started to come. I didn't censor myself. I didn't soften the edges. I wrote about the birthday she forgot, the piano lessons she gave to everyone but me, the rain-soaked afternoon outside the school gates. I wrote about the silence, the absence, the way she made me feel invisible. I didn't write to hurt her. I wrote to release myself. When I finished, I folded the letter neatly and tucked it into the drawer beside my bed. I never intended to send it. She wouldn't read it anyway. But writing it made me feel lighter, like I had finally spoken the truth out loud, even if no one else heard it. 2 weeks later my phone rang. It was my father. "She's devastated," he said, skipping any greeting. I didn't respond right away. I let the words hang. "So was I said finally. "For years." He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. He just sighed, a long, tired sound that carried decades of silence. "I didn't know," he said. "I don't think you wanted to." There was a pause. Then quietly he said, "You're right." That call wasn't about fixing anything. It wasn't an apology. It was acknowledgement. And for the first time I felt like he saw me, not as the quiet daughter who never asked for much, but as someone who had carried a weight no one bothered to notice. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the drawer where the letter was tucked away. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vindicated. It felt still. A few days later I drove out to the lake house one last time. The bank hadn't taken possession yet, but the process was underway. I had the keys. I had the right. I parked in the gravel driveway and stepped out into the crisp morning air. The lake shimmered in the distance, calm and indifferent. I walked through every room slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the windows. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let the memories come and go. The porch where I sat alone while she entertained guests. The kitchen where I was never invited to help. The guest room where I slept once, feeling like an intruder. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a reckoning. In the living room, I found a photo album tucked under the coffee table. I flipped through it. Page after page of smiling faces. Her friends, her parties, her vacations. I wasn't in a single picture. I closed the album and placed it back where I found it. Before I left, I stood at the edge of the dock and looked out over the water. The wind was gentle, the sun just beginning to rise. I whispered a quiet goodbye, not to the house, but to the version of me that had waited for her approval. Then I locked the door and walked away. Forgiveness came quietly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a moment of revelation. It was a slow, steady release. I didn't forgive her because she asked. He never did. I didn't forgive her because she deserved it. That wasn't the point. I forgave her because I needed peace. I didn't tell her. I didn't write another letter. I didn't make a speech. I just let go. The anger, the sadness, the longing, they didn't vanish overnight. But they stopped controlling me. I started sleeping better. I started laughing more. I started feeling like myself, not the version she ignored but the one I had built from scratch. One afternoon I walked through my own home barefoot and content. The walls were filled with photos. My children, my partner, my friends. Every picture told a story. Every frame held love. I realized then that I had built something she never gave me. A place where I belonged. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her money. I didn't even need her presence. I had my own life. My own family. My own peace. And that, more than anything, was my victory. There was a moment months later when I saw her name pop up on my phone. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't answer. I didn't block her. I just let it ring. She left a voicemail. I never listened to it. Some doors don't need to be reopened. Some chapters end without a final sentence. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. That freedom didn't come from revenge. It came from clarity. From knowing that I had survived her absence, her silence, her indifference, and I had thrived. I had written my own story. And she wasn't the author.